The most recent feud has left fans in complete shock under the bright lights of reality TV, when every rumor becomes a headline and every glance becomes a scandal. Never one to back down from a fight, Kirk Frost uttered remarks so scathing that the whole backstage crew gasped in shock. Yandy was in the center of it all, taken by surprise by charges that were so personal and scathing that the viewers at home couldn't trust what they hear. Fans immediately started spreading rumors. After watching the video again and analyzing every pause, every attitude, and every whispered phrase, wondering if they had just seen one of the most vicious verbal altercations in hip-hop and love history. However, Kirk's rageful outburst wasn't the only surprise. In what came next, it was. Because as the allegations of previous relationships, rumors of unspoken pregnancies, and covert betrayals came flooding in, the camera swiftly moved to Rasheeda. Fans were left wondering if she would stand up for her husband or if she would finally lose it after years of public humiliation because her silence spoke louder than words could. The whole love and hip-hop family was thrown into disarray after a single, intense altercation. Even the loud buzzing of the lights overhead could not ease the tension in the air backstage. Appeared muffled and overpowered by Kirk Frost's voice. The performance was over. The big storm was just getting started, but the official cameras had stopped recording. When pressed, Kirk, who never holds his mouth, spoke in a way that appeared to cut right through the room. His attention was fixed on Yandy, a lady who had always exuded self-assurance. With a certain serenity, the venom he spat, however, caught even her off guard. With a scornful tone and narrowed brows, Kirk questioned, "You think everyone doesn't know? I know your past and what you've been hiding, but you've been playing this innocent card for years, acting like you're above the mess." Gasps echoed. Yandy's body tensed, her lips parting in shock. "What are you even talking about, Kirk? Don't stand there." Among the crowd gathered nearby, assistants, cast members, and even some fans who had slipped into the backstage corridor for autographs froze where they stood. What was supposed to be a routine cool down after filming had devolved into an explosive showdown, and no one could look away. Kirk wasn't finished though, and he leaned forward, his words practically hissing, "If you have a problem with your marriage, don't put my name in your mess." Her voice was sharp, but there was a tremor in it, the kind of tremor that made everyone lean in closer. That word pregnant sent shockwaves through the room, and some people covered their mouths. Don't pretend that you haven't been involved with people you shouldn't have been. Don't pretend that there weren't times when you had to disappear and times when you prayed no one found out you were pregnant. The cameras may have been off, but cell phones were out in a flash, and crew members whispered anxiously, unsure whether to break it up or let it play out. Others exchanged panicked looks, wondering if Kirk was really saying this aloud in front of everyone, if this was real, or if it was just another one of his deflections. Rasheeda stood a few steps behind, her arms folded tightly across her chest, her face an unreadable canvas. She didn't leap to Kirk's defense or move to comfort Yandy. Instead, she just stared, her jaw tense, her eyes flicking between the two as if she was calculating every word being said. Rasheeda said that it felt almost staged, but the raw emotion on both faces told another story. "How dare you stand here and talk about me like that? You think you're exposing me, Kirk? Everybody knows your history. Everybody knows your history." Fans who later analyzed the leaked clips insisted that Rasheeda's silence said more than anything. That night, either Kirk or Yandy shouted. Yandy finally woke up from her stunned state, her voice rising with fury. The crowd hummed in agreement, but Kirk just smirked, his words cutting deeper. "See, that's the thing with you, Yandy. You've convinced everyone you're untouchable. You've created this image of being the perfect one. You're not a man calling out the truth. You're a coward trying to drag someone else down so you don't have to look in the mirror." Yandy's eyes flashed, threatening but never falling tears, and she stepped forward so close that security shifted nervously, expecting something physical. Her voice lowered, but every syllable dripped with venom. "But I know about the men. I know about the nights you tried to hide your mistakes. I know more than you think. You should be ashamed. You're nasty. You can't tolerate it when people think you're weak and I'm powerful. You've been dragging your wife through the mud for years, and now you're desperate enough to make up falsehoods about me." Tension flared in the room. Members of the crew discussed in whispers whether to step in. However, no one wished to interrupt the performance. For, without a doubt, even though it wasn't being shot for VH1, this was a show. Every last statement, look, and pause was the epitome of reality TV perfection. Then came the moment that would be the subject of weeks of conversation. Yandy abruptly faced Rasheeda, her voice trembling, but steady. Now what? Will you just stand by and allow him to do this? Will you allow your spouse to attempt to discredit another woman in order to save his own tarnished reputation? That query cut like a dagger through the confusion. Rasheeda departed her lips and blinked, but first there was no sound. It seemed as though years of suppressed suffering had unexpectedly split open. Her voice was low, almost tremulous, when she eventually spoke anything. I'm exhausted, she said plainly. All of this is extremely exhausting. It's always something. Kirk always finds a new way to make me and us look bad, no matter the season. And now this. What she said struck Kirk more forcefully than Yandy's. His confidence wavered for a moment as he turned to face his wife. Don't do it, Rasheeda. I'm being honest with you. I'm not making this up, you know. Rasheeda, however, shook her head, her eyes sparkling. No, I am aware that you enjoy deflecting. You're unable to manage or you bring someone else into your own scandals. Kirk, I'm not sure what's real anymore. I'm tired of being in the midst of it, regardless of whether you're lashing out of guilt or fear. After watching the leaked video, fans would repeatedly play those lines, believing it to be the most obvious indication yet that Rasheeda was prepared to end her marriage. Hashtags flooded social media as people debated if this was the last straw. There was discussion on whether this was the last straw. Yandy, meantime, held her ground, breathing heavily but speaking more steadily now. Kirk, you're mistaken if you believe that your falsehoods will be enough to break me. Truth and strength are the foundations of who I am. I don't have to degrade other people in order to feel strong. Are you able to say the same? Kirk's fingers tightened at his sides, and his mouth clenched. There was a brief fear that he could physically attack. However, security moved in closer, creating a wall without ever coming into contact with him. Every second felt like an eternity in the electrifying environment. The yelling, the charges, the heartache, everything merged into a single, memorable scene. Although some crew members discussed ending the night in whispers, none wanted to be the first to do so. This was too intense, too real, and too raw. Fans would obsess over every element of the drama for weeks on end, transforming conjecture into never-ending arguments. The damage was already done when the voices finally subsided. Kirk was unable to retract the charges he had made. The sharpest scrutiny had pushed Yandy to defend herself. Additionally, Rasheeda had acknowledged a fatigue that her admirers had long assumed, but had hardly ever heard her express. This confrontation could not be reversed. According to several insiders, Kirk had been holding onto this information for months in anticipation of the ideal opportunity to reveal it. Some thought it was just deflection, one more of Kirk's frantic efforts to divert attention away from his own endless scandals. The most startling allegations, however, were made by those who maintained that Kirk wasn't the only one who knew Yandy's purported secrets. According to them, Rasheeda herself had heard rumors long ago, but chose to keep them to herself rather than risk another public incident. Rasheeda, however, said nothing. Her timeline was unaltered, and her Instagram story was blank. Her comments were inundated with fans pleading with her to speak up and support Yandy or defend her spouse. However, she made no offer, and her silence only served to increase conjecture. Did Kirk's actions break her? Did she know in private what he was discussing? Or was she just too worn out to even take part in the circus that her life had once again devolved into? The show's cast was shattered. What ought to have been merely another reunion show had devolved into something that threatened to destroy years of relationships. Carly Red jumped online right away, her cunning smile barely masking the excitement she felt watching mayhem break out. You guys don't even know the half of it. What you saw is just the surface, she teased during a live webcast. Bambi followed suit, posting a mysterious comment on Twitter that said, "Funny how the loudest ones always got the dirtiest closets." Her statements drove supporters into a frenzy, analyzing every phrase, thinking she knew something explosive about Yandy's history. Trust me, there's a lot more to this story. Although she didn't give names, followers quickly connected. As all of this was going on, Kirk doubled down, adding in another backstage chat that was published a day later. I don't care if people think I'm the bad guy, which fueled even more drama. I am aware of what I am aware of. Yandy is not who she says she is. Allow her to deny it as much as she likes. Eventually, the truth will be revealed. His disobedience only served to widen the gulf. While some supporters gathered around him, arguing that he wouldn't jeopardize his marriage and reputation by making such a bold statement if he didn't believe it. Others called him a hypocrite for having the audacity to attack another woman and reminded everyone of his lengthy history of lying and cheating. "I've worked too hard to build my reputation to let Kirk destroy it in one night," Yandy said, refusing to let Kirk control the narrative, and set up a meeting with a few cast members to clear her name. Cameras weren't supposed to be rolling, but someone's phone caught pieces of it, and soon the clips spread like wildfire. Yandy sat across from Eric, Mina, and Spice, her eyes tired, but her voice firm. "This man doesn't respect his own wife, and now he wants to bring me down with him," she stated. "I refuse to allow it to occur. But you know how it looks, girl. When someone throws something like that out, people start to wonder. You have to come harder than just saying it's not true." Spice leaned back in her chair, her eyes narrowing. "What I don't have to do is prove myself against a liar. Kirk has been disrespecting women his entire life, so I won't give him the satisfaction of making me beg for credibility." While her words were strong, the tension in her voice betrayed the weight of the accusations. Yandy's jaw tightened. She knew that once an idea was ingrained in the public's mind, it was almost impossible to remove. "Do you even hear yourself?" Rasheeda reportedly confronted Kirk in private and asked him why he would involve Yandy in their marital problems, saying, "You're out here attacking another woman while I'm standing here, once again, embarrassed because of you." Meanwhile, Kirk and Rasheeda's home was anything but peaceful. "How many times can I handle this, in your opinion?" According to those close to the couple, Kirk attempted to spin it by saying that he was telling the truth and that Rasheeda needed to trust him. But her patience was at an all-time low, and fans saw her absence from Kirk's regular posts as a silent protest. As the story gained traction, more fans started to turn against Kirk, with Twitter threads detailing his entire memes swarmed the internet, portraying Kirk as a man who couldn't avoid drama if his life depended on it. One tweet went viral, saying, "Kirk Frost accusing someone of cheating is like a thief calling somebody a liar." The scandals ranged from prior affairs to Rasheeda's public humiliations. The fact that it received hundreds of likes and retweets demonstrated how little public trust Kirk still had. However, Kirk found allies amid the backlash. Some online voices suggested Yandy wasn't as perfect as she claimed, and anonymous accounts appeared, implying past relationships and drama that had never been made public. None of these claims were confirmed, but they fueled the flames and made the story even more hazy, leaving fans unsure of what to believe, and that uncertainty only kept leaked emails suggested that executives were pushing to schedule follow-up tapings in hopes of capturing the fallout on camera. And the network itself wasn't blind to the chaos. Insiders whispered that producers were thrilled with the attention and were already planning how to spin this into a major storyline for the next season. Kirk's outburst wasn't a disaster for them. It was ratings gold. On the backstage scene, however, things were anything but idyllic. The cast's trust was destroyed, lines were drawn, and alliances were shattered. While some remained silent out of fear of picking the wrong side and becoming the next target, others sided with Yandy, applauding her strength and dismissing Kirk as a desperate man trying to stay relevant. By the end of the week, the situation had progressed well beyond a simple argument, and Kirk's accusations were no longer just about Yandy. They were now a test of loyalty, a measure of truth, and a mirror reflecting years of pain, lies, and betrayal within their relationship. Rasheeda's silence grew heavier, and the longer she remained silent, the more fans conjectured about what she really believed. Circle. The players locked into their roles. The stage was set, and the world waited to see who would break first. Would Kirk finally face the consequences of his actions? Or would Yandy crumble under the weight of the rumors? Even though there were no fists thrown that night, the damage caused by the words spoken was far more lasting than any physical fight could ever be. There were still unanswered questions, but one thing was certain: this wasn't just another hip-hop and love feud. This was the kind of drama that could permanently alter the cast, the kind that would be discussed in whispers. Would Rasheeda, torn between loyalty and self-respect, make the choice that fans had long pleaded with her to make? The network had remained silent in public, but rumors among production staff indicated they were frantically trying to figure out how to handle the situation. The fallout from Kirk's accusations spread like wildfire in fan circles long after the cameras stopped rolling, and by the time the weekend arrived, the entire cast was on edge. You had the nerve to call me out, Yandy said, her voice echoing. So now I want you to look me in the eye and face me. Shortly after, a leaked video emerged of Yandy confronting Kirk directly at a small cast gathering. The room was dimly lit, full of tense faces and half-whispered conversations. I don't think, Yandy, I know. You ain't the saint you pretend to be. People have been whispering for years, but no one had the courage to say it. Well, I'm saying it now. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs, and before anyone could intervene, Kirk said, leaning back in his chair with a smug grin, I don't think. Fury boiled over. You are pathetic, Kirk. You have humiliated your wife season after season and cheated on her in front of the world, and now you want to come after me. You are drowning in your own mess, and instead of taking responsibility for it, you want to drag me into the mud with you. I won't allow it, Rasheeda said, sitting quietly at the far end of the sofa, abruptly raised her head. She glanced at her husband, her eyes burning. Kirk started to say, Is this really what you're doing? Embarrassing me again? Making me sit here while you attack another woman? But Rasheeda interrupted him, raising her voice. Don't even begin, please. I'm tired of your justifications. You believe you can blame someone else each time you feel cornered. Do you believe that pointing the finger at Yandy will make your treatment of me go away? Kirk, it's not. Nothing you say will make this marriage any less painful. The sound of a few actors shifting uneasily in their chairs was the only sound to break the deep quiet that followed. Even Yandy appeared surprised by the intensity of the conflict between Kirk and Rasheeda, uncertain about whether to keep battling Kirk or back off and let his own wife finish destroying him. Within hours, the leaked video became viral. Fans' emotions are, however, Kirk wasn't going to let his reputation fall apart without a fight, and in a private conversation with Scrappy and Safri that eventually made its way online, Kirk doubled down once more. The storyline swiftly changed from Kirk versus Yandy to Kirk versus the world, with Rasheeda caught in the crossfire. No matter how hard she tries to act perfect, Yandy is no better than me. You can say whatever you want, but I know what I know. Scrappy raised an eyebrow, obviously skeptical. Bro, are you sure you want to keep this up? Because from where I'm sitting, you look really desperate. People already don't trust you, and now you're trying to expose somebody else. It ain't a good look. Said another way, you're acting desperate. The fans aren't playing with you anymore. Safri shook his head and laughed. Man, you better hope you got receipts, because if you don't, Yandy going to eat you alive. The clip portrayed Kirk as obstinate, even reckless, and fans seized on the notion that he was prepared to destroy everything in order to preserve his pride. Nevertheless, rumors about Yandy's past persisted. Meanwhile, Rasheeda's patience reached a breaking point, and insiders disclosed that she packed a bag and left their shared home. Some anonymous sources asserted that Kirk wasn't lying, that there were aspects of Yandy's life before the cameras that hadn't been made public. None of this was proven, but in the court of public opinion, drama was enough. Fans speculated that Rasheeda might be ready to leave for good after she reportedly told a friend, I'm tired of always being the woman who forgives, saying, how many times do I have to prove my loyalty when he keeps dragging me through hell? Hashtags like #AmerTeam Rasheeda and our sleeve Kirk trended. She reportedly stayed at home for a few nights, not talking to Kirk unless it was about the kids. As the conflict intensified, producers called another group meeting in an attempt to regain some control, but rather than fostering reconciliation, the event devolved into another battlefield. Fans were urging her to choose peace over suffering, and some even tagged Yandy in compliments for standing her ground and telling her not to let Kirk's remarks break her spirit. Yandy sat calmly, her hands folded in her lap, but the fire in her eyes was obvious. Kirk tried to say something, but she interrupted him, saying, You've had your moment. You've thrown your stones. Now answer this. Where's your proof? The cast's cold stares told him he was losing support quickly. Kirk shifted uneasily, his confidence faltering, and he muttered about people knowing things and stories that would come out. But he had nothing tangible. Rasheeda gave a sour look. Where are these so-called receipts you claim to have? Because unless you can put something real on the table, everything you've said is nothing but lies. The cast burst out laughing, some shaking their heads, others calling Kirk out. Spice leaned forward, waving a finger. So that's it. You dragged another woman, risked our marriage, and embarrassed yourself on national television. All because of some whispers you can't even back up. She said sarcastically. "That's not how you mess with a woman's reputation," Kirk said, "not when you have nothing solid. You are aware that you have gone too far." For once, the focus was not on her alleged secrets, and Yandy let out a deep breath as the altercation came to a close with Kirk storming off, his pride bruised but his stubbornness unbroken. It was about Kirk's incapacity to support his claims. But the drama wasn't finished because, while fans argued online, Rasheeda contemplated her marriage's future, and Kirk licked his wounds. Rumors started to circulate that someone from Yandy's past was getting ready to speak up. It was unclear if this was an old flame, a jealous rival, or just another attention-seeking opportunist. Fans were riveted to every development. Cast members carefully picked sides, and Kirk's reckless words had set off a chain of events that none of them could fully comprehend. However, the possibility alone kept the story alive, demonstrating that in the world of love and hip-hop, the past never stays buried for long. Control. The days after Kirk's turbulent departure were anything but quiet. The story was being devoured by tabloids, and fans were engaged in contentious discussions on all platforms. Kirk's name was being pulled everywhere you looked. Yandy's reputation was being called into question, and Rasheeda's silence was being broken down like a puzzle that needed to be solved. Despite the deafening noise, the silence between them was the most painful thing for those at the center of the storm. Rasheeda avoided Kirk for days, and those close to her said she was hanging out with friends, depending on them for support as she tried to figure out what to do next. "This isn't the first time he's embarrassed me," she confided, her voice heavy with fatigue. "However, it feels like this could be the final one." Her remarks rapidly gained traction and became yet another headline implying that the marriage may finally be at its breaking point. In contrast, Kirk was agitated. According to insiders, he called producers late at night to attempt to persuade them that he still had shocking material to support his claims. However, he never produced any receipts when someone asked him for them. His position weakened the more he attempted to maintain the story. Fans no longer believed it. He was ridiculed by memes,